Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. Today is Wednesday, the 20th of November, 2024. I'm Gianni DePocia, your host, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, Christeen Skinner, here to join us to discuss markets and the upcoming astrology for the year ahead. So, Christeen, so excited to have you. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing really well, given that Pluto went into Aquarius last night. So happy new age to start with, Gianni. This is big.
Yeah, it definitely is a new era, and the timing of having you on couldn't be better. So we have a lot to discuss today, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we sure have, because just as Pluto went into Aquarius, I attracted in some work which was very unusual. Aquarius, I had to think outside the box. It's got to be turned around very quickly. In fact, it had to be turned around by the time the moon was opposing Pluto. So I've absolutely been into research this morning, but you might be very interested in a couple of the things I've been looking at. These are specifics for 2025, right?
Okay.
Long before your time, Gianni, and before mine, right? Can I take you back to 1857?
Let's go back to 1857, Christine.
Yeah. Well, what I didn't know, the reason I've gone there is that, as you probably know, the lunar node is finishing its stay in Aries just now. And obviously, because it's going backwards, it's going to tip into Pisces.
Yeah.
And Neptune is already there.
Yep.
So I thought the other day, I thought it would be very interesting. When was the last time the two of them were in the same sign, Pisces? Right? So that took me back to 1857, right? And would you believe, Gianni, there was a financial panic.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting, right? Now, the panic was caused by a declining international economy and overexpansion in the USA. Oops.
Yeah.
So that's kind of very interesting, because you could see that theme potentially developing.
Yeah.
But it was pinned on a particular date. And it was pinned on the 24th of August of 1857, when the Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company collapsed. There was a big bank that collapsed. In fact, the markets had climbed into the July, and there were various other problems that then led to the big collapse in just a month later. So that was very interesting to me, because I had already been studying the Jupiter-Saturn cycle, which, as we know, is the big business cycle, the 20-year cycle. Now, the common thread there is that whenever those two planets are in hard aspect to one another, you quite often get a banking crisis.
Right.
I mean, the very first one that I ever did, seriously, when I went public, the London Times, was the Bank of Commonwealth year, 1997, right? And then it's gone on since then. Well, what's interesting about those two planets is that from the geocentric point of view, they can have more than one square between them, which is what they're doing now.
Right.
Now, when so the cycle, it's so fascinating to be doing this today, Gianni. It's amazing, because when those two planets last conjoined, they conjoined at 0 Aquarius.
Yeah, in December
which is
2020.
where Pluto went. So we're picking up the theme, right? So they went into a square aspect on August the 19th, when President Biden stood aside for Kamala, right? So that was a big, thing, right? They're going to be square one another again between Christmas and the New Year, right? Yep. That might just be a damp squib and forget about it. But those two have both been taking place in what they call mutable signs. So that's one framework. They work far more dramatically if they're in cardinal signs,
right?
Which is where they're going to be. I think it's July of next year. No,
June 15th, 2025. Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided I would have a look today. I went back to the Tao, right, to see what's happened when the two of them are square or opposite one another in cardinal signs. And I went back as far as 1975. And what seems to happen is that the market goes up into the square and then falls sometimes super dramatically within the 2 weeks following it. So that, again, is sort of saying to me, actually, the summer of next year looks a little bit
turbulent.
It looks a little bit dicey, but on the other hand, that could be a fantastic buying opportunity. I don't think it is, actually, but I'm looking to see what's the overall framework going to be. And I would say that, well, in fact, actually what I did, I went on a little bit further because I decided the 9th degree of Cancer is Jupiter's favorite degree, you know, of all of them, right? Likes being up there. So I think it's possible that the market will go up high into 9 degrees Cancer, but then have a sharp drop, which would then figure that would pick up with the eclipse that follows it in September, which is at 29 degrees of Virgo. So if I'm being asked, which is what I was being asked last night, was are there any real financial banana skins in 2025? I think I'm backing them up both with the Neptune node in Pisces and also the Jupiter-Saturn square.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. You know, like you said, Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is comfortable in Cancer, but at the same time, Saturn's going to be in the detriment of Aries at the same time. So really, you have a very strong Jupiter, a weakened Saturn. I think that's a very insightful take, as you get a booming market into that. You have those, you know, that growth-oriented energy of Jupiter being exalted, and kind of that restrictionary energy of Saturn being weakened. So that does seem to be like a climactic type of environment.
I think it probably will be. And I think particularly for the US markets.
Yeah.
Because that's something else. Because if you follow that, you know, the McWhirter business cycle, through the node, I mean, sometimes that's a bit of a red herring, because it works very, very well in the US.
Yeah.
But if you start comparing it, say, with the UK or the German or the French markets, they don't follow exactly the same pattern. And why should they? You know, they're all different. They're all different characters.
Sure.
So that was my primary thing. But I didn't stop there, because the other thing, of course, I'm going to come out in public and say this now, but I was being reticent about this before, which you'll understand, is that Mars is going to turn retrograde on the 6th of December, which I appreciate is not this week, and you'll be covering it more, you know, coming up. But what's significant about that is that the following day, the 7th, is the anniversary of Pearl Harbor.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
Now, Mars is turning retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo, which is exactly where Pluto was in 1941. So I was already on that case. Then when I started to look at the recent eclipse, the October one that we just had, right, and the path of that, which virtually starts from the Hawaiian Islands, drops down across South America and fades away by the time you get to the Falklands, right? Okay. That was picking up a warlike theme, right? So then I went from that. Do you remember we listened to Claude Weiss?
Yeah.
Who was fantastic at the event, absolutely superb. Well, I was picking up on what he'd done. Remember, he showed us that chart of mankind.
Yeah, the chart of mankind, the modern world. Yeah.
The modern world, and he was picking up 7 degrees of Taurus, which is, of course, right angles to 6 of Leo.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, it's really it's unhappily spooky that this fits in also with Hiroshima and just even the threat of atomic weaponry. And I haven't really wanted to write or talk about that on the basis that energy follows thought. But given what the news has been in the last 24 hours, I think we have to think about that. So then I went back to use your charts again. If you look at when Mars has gone retrograde before, the Dow and the S&P don't like it, right? I mean, you know, they immediately now. So they could go into a slight high for the 6th, right, and then drop that weekend, so that by the time they open on Monday the 9th, they're significantly lower than on the Friday.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's you know, there's some cycles that we're watching in stocks. There's one that's coming due here very shortly, near term. You know, we had that post-election jump in the market. A lot of people chased that move, and you know, when you get people chasing moves like that, a lot of times you get a quick reversal. So near term, I am looking for a low, and if I'm not mistaken, Christine, don't we have is Neptune going direct around the time that Mars goes retrograde as well?
And that's correct. You're spot on it. Yeah, I mean, it depends which ephemeris you're using, but yes, you're absolutely right. And what's significant is on the Saturday the 7th, which, as I said, is the anniversary date.
Yeah.
This goes to Aquarius, for the first time since Pluto has been properly into Aquarius. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that weekend could see a marked change of pace.
Right. Well, it's interesting when you look at history, some of the biggest changes, at a global level do often come after a war. But I must admit, I do have a sense of optimism going into next year, largely due to the, you're going to be in orb, but the Uranus-Pluto trine. Uranus is going to be in Gemini, trine Pluto. Then you're going to be sextile Neptune. So I think next year might be the turbulent year, but I don't know if it'll last that long. Once you get those final ingresses of all those outer planets in 2026, it leads me to believe that hopefully, whatever conflicts that come about in the next several months, there's a good outcome to that, and we do enter that new world. Because let's be real, we've kind of been living in that post World War II international order, and here we are now. It's like 80 some years old. It's it's a Uranus cycle, so it's coming to an end.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be a harbinger of doom. I really don't. But
Yeah.
if you, I think there are several things to say about this. You are absolutely right. I think we should welcome the Uranus trine Pluto, but the fact that Saturn and Neptune are on the midpoint of that could dilute its potential,
Sure,
right? It absolutely could. And I think we also have to be aware that there's going to be a Saturn Chiron conjunction squaring Pluto at 27, 28. We've got a big disease cycle that will come up again, So I said about COVID-19, I think that was a bit of a rehearsal for something bigger.
Sure.
And if you unpick the Pluto Chiron cycles, right? And again, that takes us back to 1941 on the typhoid thing of that year. I think you're absolutely right. I think some sectors of the market are going to do super, super well. I mean, phenomenally well, right?
Yeah.
But I think other sectors are absolutely not. And we're seeing the end of a phase. So, it's going to require a lot of courage, I think, for people to be trading next year.
Yeah, well, especially, starting the new year with Mars retrograde, that's going to set the tone. Mars retrograde, not exactly the ideal signature for courage, right?
No, well, no, it's not. I mean, the bit about that concerns me is when it returns to Cancer, right? Because it really doesn't like being there. And as I've said, whatever index you look at, Mars turning retrograde will bring something of a downward tip, right?
Yeah.
I think it could escalate or increase is the word, I think, probably, when Mars gets back into Cancer.
Sure. Well, Christine, I know that other our viewers definitely want to hear your take on precious metals and Bitcoin. Let's start with Bitcoin because it's obviously going parabolic right now. So what is your take on what's happening in cryptocurrency, and are there any signatures that you're watching that could impact that market?
Well, I think I've got a serious allergy to Bitcoin. I have to tell you, it's a real serious allergy. Right? Okay. It's not my favorite because it goes too wild, right?
Yeah.
And so I tend to look at the others. I've been doing very well with Ripple, right? The XRP trades, and that one is showing. That's very interesting because Ripple, which has got, we've got 9 years worth of data for it now.
Yeah.
It loves Venus going through Aries,
How about that?
right? Which is really interesting. And Venus goes into Aries next on the 4th of February, which happens to coincide with Jupiter turning direct. So I think, I think Ripple could actually do very well next year. I'm not talking about the short term, but for February, I've certainly got my eye on it. Copper is another one that I've been looking at. Because copper takes, I've forgotten the date now. Is it July 1988? I think. One of
the first trade.
Yeah. Its sun is at 6 degrees of Leo.
Oh wow, where Mars is going to go retrograde. Yeah.
So Mars is going to go retrograde. So I'm looking for a significant movement in copper prices over that. What's that? It's going to be Monday the 8th, isn't it? Is that right? No, Monday the 9th of December.
Yeah. Yeah, Monday the 9th. Yep.
Yeah. And the other one that I'd done really well with was gold.
Gold.
Because that I did really well with that because of the many cycles that it responds to, and it seems to, gold can respond to anything. The price tends to go up into a Mars-Pluto opposition and then fall off, which is exactly what it did on cue this time. But of course, I'm wondering what it's going to do now because we get another couple of hits of this. But the first one, which was what, October. Can you get it?
Well, we have the low here on October 10th in gold, and you rallied up to the high.
That's it. And that rally,
Yeah.
I think took it into the Mars-Pluto.
Yeah. It was in that orb.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So, but of course, and what I'm saying is that I think the price is obviously going up again now, but I think we might have another drop after the next Mars-Pluto.
Okay. Very interesting. Well, Christine, do you have any other announcements you'd like to share with us? Where can our viewers find you and your work? And I have a couple of announcements that I'm looking forward to sharing with our viewers as well.
Well, I do my monthly event now. The next one of those is December the 15th. Right?
Okay.
And if anybody wanted to email me, just, my name at gmail.com will do. Then I can send them the recording for the recent one in November, which will give them an idea of what I'm actually thinking about the markets short term, right? But we do those monthly events. The next one's December the 15th. So, yeah, that was quite a good chat, although I think I did most of the talking. But...
No, that's good. Well, everyone's here to listen to you talk today. They hear me talk every week, so they're finally catching a breath of fresh air. Like enough of this Gianni guy, So, well, Christine, you and I we're going to be together again in March 7th through 9th in Orlando, Florida, the Cosmic Conference.
We are, and I'm going to do something really special there, Gianni, because I'm doing something about gold and silver trading. I'm going to show all the different bits of research that I've done, which is I've done it across different things. I've done it against heliocentric and geocentric, which I love. And I might do a teaser of a bit of the draconic stuff in with it as well.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So it's called Convergence 2025, Cosmic Pattern Astrology Conference in Orlando, Florida, from the 7th of March to the 9th. Christine will be there. I will be there. Ray, Puyan, Vibka, Ulrich, a whole suite of MMA analysts and top-notch financial astrologers. So definitely hope that you can meet us there. So Christine, we're actually having an options webinar with Ray and Derek Panaya on the 8th of December. That's a very exciting event. Derek is our in-house options market specialist. And of course, it's forecast season. We're coming to an end on that. The Forecast 2025 book is done being written. It's going to be hitting the printer soon. I covered 4 markets this year. I did T-notes, Japanese yen, the Swiss franc, and the Zurich SMI. And, all of these planetary ingresses next year hitting very sensitive points on the natal charts of the Bank of Japan and the Swiss National Bank. You actually have the Swiss National Bank natal Venus at 29 Taurus. And, obviously that's a pretty important degree, pretty important, central bank for the world. So, we're easing right now. Central banks around the world are lowering rates, but I don't think it's going to last much longer. It kind of lines up with, that time band you're looking at for, let's say like June to August of 2025. I think it's going to be a real flashpoint looking into the next year.
Absolutely. And I mean, we should talk about this another time. We should do interest rates because that's a really interesting.
We could spend a whole hour on that.
We can do that.
Yeah. So, all right, Christine. Well, that's all we have for today. So thank you so much for joining. And we'll definitely have you back in the near future. And everyone, please subscribe to the channel and check out Christine's work. And we'll be back same time, same place next week. And you can find all of our stuff at www.mmacycles.com. Thanks again, Christine.
Thank you.